Okay, so welcome. Officially class number 3, mindfulness and emotional intelligence. Hello, my name is Michael Zattel. I'm teaching here through Insight LA. I am a senior teacher here. Been a part of many different sanghas prior to Insight LA. Was a teacher with Against the Stream. Spent some decades working with Shinzen Young and Vipassana Support International. So I've been practicing for a little over 35 years myself. I'm a therapist, spent many years working in the fields of addiction and recovery, as well as within my own private practice. And part of my passion is taking Buddhist psychology and taking it out of the realms of just some academic pursuit and just actually making it a real viable methodology for healing, self-reflection, and something that can really be utilized rather effectively in working with our emotions. Let me just make sure that the mute's on here. So I'm muting everybody, but if at any time you have a question, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask away. Just blurt out a question. Like I said, I'm trying to kind of conceal people's images, so I don't have everybody up. So if you just raise your hand politely, I won't see you. So feel free to just be rude and just blurt out any questions. I'm happy to go into a bit more of a conversation. Anybody that's worked with me knows that I can just kind of press play and go into an information dump in a didactic. So feel free to interrupt and make this more of a conversation. That's an official invitation to everybody. So before we get into the new material, let's do a little bit of a review. Shall we? Where are we? We are right here. Okay, can everybody see this? All right, so review from last week. Last week we were doing a bit of the, how shall we say, bearing down versus lightening up. Yeah? So how is it that we can, we're working with our emotions. We're working with some charged material. Sometimes it's good to bear down or really kind of lean into the experience. How is it that we can permit and allow? For some of us, especially if we might have historically been challenged to experience the pleasant flavors of joy, love, humor, safety, how is it that we can permit and allow those a bit more when maybe we might inhibit them for one reason or another? Or on the other side of it, if we are allowing ourselves to kind of explore some of the more challenging emotions, how is it that we can just really lean into those experiences and maybe the anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, etc., that we might have been previously defending against, how is it that we can actually open up and turn towards and permit and allow that? Yeah, so that's one side of the coin, the leaning in, the bearing down into our experience. And it's also good to know how to back out of that, how to lighten up. Hey, I'm feeling a little overly activated here, overly activated to the point where maybe my executive functioning is starting to shut down. My ability to make some wise decisions is a little tenuous. I feel like I'm a little more on edge. I'm probably in a place where I might just kind of say the wrong thing to the wrong person or act out in some way that I might regret later. Or just a sense of, this is just too much. How can I just kind of lighten up? It's good to know how to lighten up as well. So we were looking a little bit at that last week. And so this is part of why I really go into the breath focus in the beginning, the shamatha focus. So I feel that this is just an excellent tool. The more that we work with it, the more that we get into it, the more that we examine and cultivate a relationship with the breath focus, the more effective it can become as a calming, cooling agent. So I'd like to work with this concept of the diagram of the breath as a cycle. So, the first half of the breath, the top, as we're breathing in, and the top of the in-breath, that's kind of more the pleasant, energizing qualities. As we exhale and the out breath and the base of the out breath, it's more the calming qualities. So a lot of people report as we focus in on the in breath, we can experience a sense of energy. Breathing in, okay, it's a little uh, um, you know, effervescent, pleasant, energetic experience. There can be a slight hedonic uptick or maybe even a slightly joyful tone within that. There can be the certain oxygen pleasure of like, oh, my air needs being met. That can be available in the in-breath. You don't have to tap into these specifically, but these are by and large generally what a lot of people report. So the more that we can tap into those qualities, notice them, give ourselves permission to feel them, that becomes the content of our experience. Yeah? When we're at the top of the in-breath, most people report kind of a sense of a wakefulness, a certain, again, an energy. We're taking in that oxygen. A lot of our systems are being flushed there with oxygen. And so it gives this wakeful, this energy, this fullness. Yeah? So those are kind of energizing qualities. On the out-breath, most people report, well, it's the relaxation response. In that sigh, there's the relaxation, there's the feelings and qualities of restfulness, or relinquishing, just that letting go. The base of the out breath, we can follow that breath to the end before we inhale again. Most people report there's some signs of tranquility, equanimity, peace, contentment even. So again, you don't have to have these specific experiences. These are just kind of generally what a lot of people report, but that's why I like to open up each meditation with the shamatha exercise of contacting breath, because ultimately it's a good lightening up strategy. Last week I talked about this analogy of playing tag. So, if you've ever had this experience as a child playing tag with your friends, or awkwardly stumbling through the game with not so much friends, but just people that you knew on the playground, that's the analogy. You can lean into the experience, which kind of is the bearing down, so you're engaging the content, you're exploring the space, you're exploring experience, you're allowing for the spontaneous uprising of whatever happens. And then when it gets a little too much, lighten up. All right, I'm going to take a breath here. I got my hand on base. Everybody leave me alone, So when you're hanging out on base, it's rest, safety, self-soothing. So at any time that we're doing any of this work where you're feeling like, this is a little triggering here, just go to base, hang out on base, and just kind of recuperate, resource. And then if and when you feel it's appropriate, you jump back in. So again, I'm reviewing the bearing down, lightening up, because last week, I think, in looking a lot at the shamatha and such, I think I was focusing on spotlighting. There is the lightening up. This week, I'd like to go into the bearing down a little bit more. And I want to, I guess, how shall we say, really look at, how shall we say, really want to look at the bearing down. How is it that we can lean into the Vipassana side of things? Yeah. So we've been working thus far with this noting feeling state strategy, this noting feeling states type of exercise in meditation, where we're having this somatic focus, we're allowing whatever comes up to come up, and we're contacting it sensation by sensation, labeling it, oh, that's anger, that's fear, that's joy, that's love, and hanging out with it. So if you remember the analogy of clear, contact, label, explore, accept, relinquish. So contacting the sensation, labeling the emotion, exploring it. How does it arise in the body? How do you feel it in the body? How much of a real estate does it take up in the body? So contact, label, explore, accept. Do we have that capacity for acceptance, equanimity, that imbuing it, that allowing of it? Sensations want to come into being, pass away from being. Oftentimes the difficult ones, we want to just step on them, repress them, distract ourselves in one way or another. So this practice of opening up and turning towards that equanimity quality, that greeting it with that friendliness, acceptance, that's what's allowing it to come into being, flourish for as long as it needs to be there, and then pass away, or just die off of its own battery drain, so to speak. And then we relinquish, we let go. So there's something about that process that's, well, processing. This is the processing of our experience. If we kind of allow things to come up and we just kind of contact it, bear witness to it, this is just the backlog of our experience that we're just kind of sorting through. This is the cleaning of our closet, so to speak. We're taking a Marie Kondo style inventory of the backlog of emotions that we might have had. And as well with that, the lifetime of unprocessed poison and pain that subtly operates underneath the surface, underneath the radar, and tends to distort perception, drive behavior. So by having this practice of opening up, turning towards, and bearing witness, allowing that to happen, there's something that processes. And as a result, there's a purification that can happen. That is to say, maybe some experiences that were a little overwhelming, or you were aversive to, or might have been avoidant of, suddenly become less triggering. They eventually become less something that becomes a destabilizing force. But it's just, you find that you're something about your tolerance and resiliency have grown to experience that particular flavor, as well as, well, its impact on you is a lot less. I mean, case in point, part of the reason that I pursued this whole venture of becoming a teacher and doing groups and such like that is I had incredible fear of public speaking, um, significant social phobia. So it's just my own idea. I thought, well, that'd be great. Just put yourself in the spotlight in front of a crowd of people and just work on it. And so for the first number of years, it was like a 50-50 experience of me just kind of gripping the material, looking at it, while part of my experience is just inside processing, you know? And so part of it would be sitting beforehand, sitting afterwards, working with what came up, until it got to the point where it's like with the clear contact with the emotions that would come up and the feeling through, allowing them to just rise and fall, then it became just an activity that can happen in the background. I'm just feeling those uprises and fallings of emotion as I'm able to have more mental real estate available to devote towards what it is that I want to do in this context: speak, orate, pass on some energy and information. And then at a certain point, it just kind of went away. So that's an example there. So I thought that I would look at something that's like, well, that seems like a rather magical thing that you're talking about. But here's a particular map that I think works out well. So for some of you that study with me with some regularity, you've heard this before. So I'd like to say this is a 4-stage model, particular map of working with insight practices. So thanks to Michael Taft, deconstructingyourself.org. Check it out, check out his work. He's an excellent teacher, a fellow Shinhead, sat with him back in the day with Shinzen Young. So this is part of the reason why I like this map that he came up with, because it just feels very true in terms of working with that Shinzenian-based style of processing material. So here we have 4 stages. The conceptual stage, the sensory stage, stages of flow, and awareness. Yeah. So this is about working with our stuff. Working with our stuff in the context of an insight or vipassana practice. So in the conceptual stage, we're just thinking about things. It's just ideas and concepts. So in the context of this work of working with emotions, the conceptual stage of working with emotions is we're thinking about emotions. A lot of ways when we might be talking about things with a friend or with a therapist, or just on our own contemplating some emotive experiences. Um, a significant part of it is just we're working with concepts and ideas. We're reflecting upon memories, fantasy, planning, daydream. Um, so a lot of times I might direct us to work on the feelings, the emotions, and then people might report that they're kind of spending a lot of time thinking about a certain issue, which can happen if we're working specifically with a trigger practice. But if we're thinking, we're not necessarily really engaging in the meditation. You know, we're probably engaging in some self-soothing strategy or a self-activating strategy, which is kind of triggering ourselves, especially with emotion. This is part of the reason why emotions are so historically challenging to work with, especially as we're really not taught how to deal with it in the West. You know, West and also contemporary these days. When we talk about emotions, there's a sense of, well, there's a story and there's an idea and there's the he said, she said, and there's all this explosions of things going on in the body, and there's all the different ways I defend against it. So part of the series is how can we just chill that out and also become a little bit more organized and adept at feeling through our experience. So if we're just dealing with the conceptual stage, we're thinking about emotions, we're probably more dealing with the thoughts, the ideas. We're probably either trying to move away from the emotions into a self-soothing strategy, or kind of go through this loop of kind of activating ourselves by thinking about the situation, the scenario. Often when we're thinking about a problem, we go unconscious to how the concepts, thoughts, fantasies fuel the somatic emotion. So here's the idea. Oh, this person said this. Bam, here's this flash of anger. Oh, I should have said this. Boom, here's this flash of remorse, which triggers this idea, which triggers this somatic expression of emotion. Boom, boom. They're just going back, just kind of ping pong, fueling each other. Yeah. Which in turn fuels more thought, fueling more emotion, fueling more thought, etc. All the while we're not consciously aware of the process. Yeah? So this is when we get lost in our rumination. This is where we become overwhelmed by, going in circles, thinking about something, and just, wearing ourselves down as the emotions get stronger and stronger. And oftentimes we want to climb into our head so we can cut ourselves off at the neck and not have to deal with what's going on in the body. So oftentimes working with meditation, working with clients and students to rectify this, at this stage, we're not intentionally thinking about emotional content. Yeah? To the best of your ability, let's cut off this head and just go into the body. We're working with the somatic expression of emotion. Yeah? So, however, if thinking is occurring, just redirect your attention in the body. What's the feel-in experience? What's the sensations in the body that are emotional in nature? So what's the feel-in that's being generated by your thinking? So focus more on the body, what's occurring in the body, and allow for a dismissive labeling of see and hear related to thought. Yeah? So as we're being plagued by different thoughts, and I think that somebody brought this up last week in the context of waking up in the middle of the night, just being assailed by lots of intense thinking that creates anxiety and makes it difficult to sleep. And so, I was talking about this see, hear, feel strategy. So part of the idea is, as the thoughts are happening, whatever you see as an image, oh, that's just seeing, dismiss, push it away. Any type of auditory talk or anything that happens, oh, that's just hearing, push it away. Keep coming back into the body, coming back into feel of the body. So the more that we're able to do that, that takes us out of the conceptual stage and puts us in the sensory stage, getting into the actual feel in of the body experience. We're able to discern qualities and sensations. So, this is a significant thing. If all we can do is this, it's huge, because we are normally have what we would call a egoic sense of self. Yeah, there's me who's playing a role in the context of a story, in the context of a larger story. That's how we gain so much of our identity. Identity is such a huge buzzword and focus everywhere these days. And so much of our identity is, who we are in the context of a story. If we're able to pause that from time to time and be able to not have exclusively and only an egoic-based experience of self and drop into experiencing self as a sensory system, it's a huge sea change. It's a huge paradigm shift. And what that does is it kind of gives this whole being an ego at odds with the rest of the world a break, and allows us just to be able to experience our own sensory system. A lot of meditation, that's what this is. Just being with the senses. Seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, feeling is feeling. So the sensory experience, again, going back to what we were talking about in previous weeks, that clear acronym. Can we contact the sensation? Can we label what it is? In this context of what we're doing here, contact the sensation, label this specific emotion: anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust, shame, embarrassment, joy, love, humor, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, peace, contentment. Label the emotion, explore the qualities, size, the shape, the energy that it has. Accept the experience, open up, turn towards, and view it with equanimity. And relinquish, let go, so we can enter into the next moment. Now, this is a way that we can maintain contact with the sensory experience here. Now then, the more that we're able to maintain the sensory contact, well, whatever it is that we are contacting doesn't necessarily have to, but given enough time and practice, it'll start to present itself as flow. That is to say, there is some degree of a rate of change. Let's say in one moment, I'm just gripped by this localized sensation of anxiety here. The more I'm able to imbue it with equanimity, do my bearing down, lightening up, and maybe it might begin to expand, but become a little bit more diffuse. Maybe it might kind of go into remission and then come up again, become diffuse, go into remission. There might become some fluidity that happens. So there's different ways that we can look at flow. So there's the local, global, full body. So that's a technique we're going to be going into today, where we're essentially just permitting, allowing the expansive contractive forces to just do their thing. And we just track the movement. So we permit, yield, allow the activity of flow to take the lead. So we're just kind of bearing witness too, but if the sensation wants to go here, we allow it. If it wants to go here, we allow it. If it wants to expand, we allow it. If it wants to contract, we allow it. So if we do this, it induces a viraga, or a sense of dispassion. Now, that sense of we become less activated or interested in it. We begin to take it less personally. So rather than this overwhelming emotion that we're defending against, it can become just this subtle fluid activity of rising and passing. And with that, we can have moments of cessation and release. It's gone, we let go. That activity has completed itself. The more that we're able to facilitate or have the experience of flow take place, then the less that we're identified with each uprising. When we're having the egoic-based experience of self, I'm identified with every thought, feeling, concept that's out there. I'm wrapped up in my sense of identity. When I begin to relax this and then get into the sensory experience, there's a little bit more objectivity, a little bit more distance. Then when it gets into flow, then we get to this place where it's just rising and passing of whatever. And the thing that becomes more of a constant just is awareness itself. So without getting too mystical schmystical about that, just what is that faculty of whatever is awake right now in your awareness? Sorry to use a word to define itself, but when the emotion loses its grip, awareness becomes more evident. Awareness itself can begin to view the emotion. And then we can just rest our attention in awareness, just kind of looking back to whatever it is that's sensing, perceiving. It becomes a bit more of a self-inquiry practice. So I just wanted to just look at really part of this idea of like processing of our emotional experience in the context or through the lens of bearing down a bit with the Vipassana. and then how we might move from the conceptual, I'm thinking about a circumstance, I'm thinking about emotion, to being able to have the sensory experience of it and how that can induce flow. That's where things are processing. That's where we're digesting our experience in a way. And then awareness. This is where we're able to kind of have that experience of being cleaned out, empty. All right. So I just want to pause because that was a significant information dump, and just say, does anybody have any questions about anything covered thus far? Feel free to just unmute yourself and ask away. Okay. Right. So let's get into, oh, hold on. Let me check the chat. People might have been saying something there. Okay, cool. Nope. Let's get into the next part then. So we're going to go into a sit, but before we do, I'd like to introduce the particular technique that we're going to be working with. So anybody who has worked with me for some time might be familiar with this local global focus. Let's get into that. Okay. Let's get into that. Where is that? Here we go. Mindfulness and emotional intelligence, number 3, working with flow states and maps for practice. So we went over the maps for practice. Let's look at this flow states. So here we have this little meditating person, monastic, or somebody that just enjoys sitting cross-legged with a shaved head. Let's look at this here. Sensations in the body, including emotions, occupy a 3-dimensional space that tends to shift and change. Right? This is the fluidity. This is the flow. So sometimes the sensation can just be local, or a small localized region of space, of emotionally active space. So some people report, oh, I have this localized gripping experience of anxiety right here. Or a lot of people might point to like a very activated, chronically charged small region of space in their body where it seems like all the emotion is stuffed. Or for sometimes, as we're just checking in with the body, with the emotions, I might just feel something. Just feel something right here in the shoulder. Just feel small localized sensation in the chest, or just in the stomach, or wherever. So that's a local sensation. Sometimes the sensation might want to expand, and it becomes more of a global sensation here. Global or more mid-sized region of the body that contains, it's an emotion that contains a little bit more real estate. I'm feeling this sadness kind of in the eyes, but it goes into the throat and the chest. It's more of a global sensation. It kind of takes up a little bit more of the body. Sometimes I have this feeling of nervousness that's in the stomach, but it kind of radiates into the spine and goes up the shoulders. So again, it's a mid-sized region. So we use the label global. And from time to time, we might have a full body experience. That is to say, the emotion can become so strong, we feel it everywhere. Or our sensitivity and attunement can become so refined that we can detect it everywhere. So full body, the theme of sensation takes up the majority of the body. Literally, it doesn't have to take up everything, but if it's the majority of the body, good enough. It's full body. So this is what we're doing. We're going to be tracking sensation and just looking. Is it local, global, or full body? So just small, medium, and large. As always, the labels and the labeling set is there to be helpful. Don't worry about getting it right. I want to just take a moment to just remind everybody I'm looking for a solid D- in performance. It's learning, not perfection. So a lot of times people are like, I don't know if this is local or if this is global. Is this global? Is this full body? I'm freaking out here. Don't worry about it. Guessing is always appropriate. The most important thing is that you're leaning your attention in a way that you can hold your experience in your focus in this way. And just begin to observe the expansive contractive flux and potential fluidity and flow of the sensations in the body. We're if we're cultivating the concentration, the clarity, and the equanimity, then you're doing good. Okay. Right. Now, any questions before we get into it? All right. Let's get into it. Allow yourself to come to a comfortable upright position. Allow yourself to straighten up and settle in. We are going to be working with some insight practice with our emotions today. But I'd like to start off with cultivating of some shamatha, cultivating of some calmness and concentration as we begin to find our way towards the breath. So just like in the diagram that we were looking at earlier, can we regard the breath as a rotating cycle? On the in-breath, can we attune ourselves to any of the pleasant qualities that arise from the in-breath? Maybe a joy, an energy, a certain oxygen pleasure comes from inhaling. Just allowing yourself to discern anything pleasant that occurs on that in-breath. For the next few rounds, can you attune yourself to the top of the in-breath? As you're slowing down at the end of the inhale, coming towards that pause before you breathe out, what can be found there in that stage? A wakefulness, a certain vibrant energy. Whatever is available for you, discern it and give yourself permission to feel it. And on that out breath, what's available there? The restfulness, the relaxation response, the relinquishing. Can you discern that? Allow yourself to feel that. And what's available at that base of the out breath? Your awareness of your breath comes towards the end of the breathing out, and there's that pause before you inhale again. What's uniquely available there? Sense of settling, stillness, peace, whatever it is for you, just acknowledge it and give yourself permission to feel it. If you like, you can even slow down your pacing of breath and really allow yourself to get into the subtle sensation. So we notice that at each stage, these 4 points of breath, the sensations available might shift, change, be a little different. Give yourself that permission to soak into any of the energizing or restful qualities the breath may have available for you. If you find yourself ever lost in the storm of the thoughts, it's perfectly normal. Anytime an image arises associated with fantasy, planning, or daydream, it's just an activity of seeing. Label it see, dismiss it, come back into the body. Any internal talk that you hear, the internal commentaries or dialogues, it's just a moment of hearing. Label it as here, dismiss it, come back into the body. Okay, good. So, breath. It's always there, it's always available. If at any time you feel a little tired of playing tag, then just go rest on base. That is to say, just reach out, contact, and be with breath. Rest and resource. But for now, I invite you to expand the scope of your focus into the rest of the body. Tune your awareness to the parts of the body that are where you can normally detect emotions. Most people report this to be the front of the torso, throat, and face. But wherever it is for you, just notice. At any given time, there can be sensations in the body that are emotive in nature. Anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust, shame, embarrassment, joy, love, humor, compassion, appreciative joy, acceptance, peace. Can't quite tell what it is, but it feels negative or it feels positive. Not sure, don't know. They're all perfectly good labels. But like the fish exploring the aquarium, just allow your awareness to just notice something here, check out something over there. Contact, emotion, label it. So it might sound something like this: joy, joy and fear, sadness, acceptance, not sure, joy, and so on like that. Again, we're not engaged in thinking. We're just hanging out in the body, just seeing what might be there. Contact, label, and explore. more that we can stay consistent with our labeling, the more we are reinforcing a consistent stream of mindfulness attuned to a particular theme. That is to say, the emotive expressions in the body. So we contact, we label, we explore. What is the location of the emotion? How much space does it take up? Is it local, global, or full body? If you feel inclined to experiment with this tonight, I invite you to do so. So, first, we label what the emotion is. And second, we just label the volume of space it takes up, local, global, or full body. So now the labeling set might sound something like this: fear, global; peace, full body; joy, local; fear, global; sadness, local, and so on like that. Again, don't get too caught up in the labels if they trip you up. They're there for the intention of being a helpful tool. What is most important is that you're contacting, feeling it in the body, and exploring the size, the shape, the boundaries. All the while, permitting, allowing, greeting it with an acceptance and equanimity. Feel free, if you'd like, to just slow things down. Just be with a facet of your experience at a time. If anything wants to come into being, allow it. If it wants to expand, allow it. If it wants to contract, dissipate, allow it. Really allow the sensations in the body to take the lead. Our job is to just witness and allow. If we can discern and recognize the emotion, whether it's local, global, full body, then great. And really just allow the sensations to take the lead. Continue to meet it with this allowing, acceptance, equanimity. Things are heating up and it's too much. Take a break, hang out on base, just reconnect with the breath. If you're hanging out and there's not much happening, there's no emotions at all, ask yourself, are you 100% at peace? If the answer is yes, is that local, global, or full body? If the answer is no, you're not fully at peace, then there's probably some emotive experience. It's very subtle, wispy, fleeting. It's okay to guess, it's okay to not be sure. We're just leaning into the subtlety of our experience here. Contact label, local, global, full body, meeting with equanimity and letting go. So, as we're tracking local, global, full body, any degree of movement, fluidity, flow, just permit and allow. Any rate of change, just acknowledge it. Sensation may move from local to global to full body, back again. It may be fleeting and disappear, or it may be stable and solid. Whatever rate of change, from 0 to quite fluid, is perfectly fine. Okay, good. So we've been doing a lot of efforting, a lot of technique. You could just drop all of it. Take a break. Of course, we've permitted certain patterns to happen. So if it's going on, just allow the emotions and the flux and flow to still be in the background. Just try to rest in awareness. Whatever part of you that is bright, awake, noticing, just can you contact that? Allowing the emotions and anything else in the environment around you to just hang out in the background. Okay, very good. At ease, everybody. Post bell practice, allowing yourself to remain open to receive the merits of your efforts, engaging in active listening. So I'd like to hear from you. What did you notice? What did you observe? What was relevant for you during this sitting period? And of course, any questions you might have about any of the practice that we did tonight. Feel free to just unmute yourself and manifest.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, my name is Edward. It was interesting. Near the end, um, one thing I can say for sure was I had a local anger, uh, but right near the end, it started to move. It started to rise up. It started in the chest and began to move up the throat, up the front of the face, and to the top of the head,
Hmm.
where it seemed to dissipate.
Hmm.
There's many more things that also happened, but I don't know. That was the most interesting one, I guess, to mention.
Oh. So how was it for you to notice and track the anger in that way to the point where it dissipated?
you, you know, one the anger was coming from a specific place, a specific narrative of someone who I'm angry at. I interpreted the anger moving as the anger kind of going away. But at the same time, in my head, I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not ready to forgive this person. I'm still angry at them." So there was kind of this logical. I guess there were these thoughts that were at odds with the feelings, where the 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 localized feeling was kind of like going away, but the thoughts were like, no, I don't agree with I don't agree with this.
I agree with this. Yeah, it's interesting. So part of it is, yeah, maybe we're not necessarily ready to forgive the individual. Maybe we're not, we don't want to become the Buddhist doormat, so to speak, and allow people to walk all over us. But to whatever degree you can diminish your own suffering
Yeah.
around what's happening within that. So by allowing, oh, okay, that anger, if it's like we just keep feeding it with the thoughts, it can just continue to compress or explode or what have you. But
Mm,
just taking some time to just kind of press the pause on the thinking and just allowing this sensation to do whatever it needs to do, in which in your case it just kind of went up and then kind of dissipated for a little
yeah.
bit. Now then, as it dissipated, did you notice like a diminishing of your discontent or the suffering around that sensation?
I would, yeah, I would say so. The anger, I think I would say, a new anger came, reformed in the chest again,
Hmm.
and kind of similarly, it started to go up. But I would say the second time that it happened, it was far smaller and far less intense than the first time.
Okay,
The first
interesting.
time, it was a very, very tangible knot in my chest.
Hmm.
But the second time, it almost felt like when you're cleaning dust, and the second time you go around, you're grabbing the edges, and when there was just like residue anger left over.
Okay, good. I would imagine, or I'd be curious if you were to continue working on this theme, because it sounds like there's a prolonged issue that's taking place that's creating a lot of emotive content for you.
Mhm.
I would imagine if you were to continue to practice this in time, you may very well become very adept at just kind of permitting, allowing that anger to just kind of come up as this wave that just completes itself, comes up again, and then just kind of wave and dissipates to the point where it might become a little less obtuse, less obtrusive, and
Yeah,
more of just like a fluid experience that then when you enter into that situation and you're dealing with that individual or what have you, um, you might have kind of your wits about you a lot more to be able to handle it, resolve it, while the emotion is just kind of being fluid and flowing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Very, very, very possibly.
Great. Cool. Cool. All right. Keep practicing that way, Edward. Excellent job.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah. Good. Who's next? What did you notice? What did you observe? Just
I
curious.
have a I have a question.
Yeah. Come on up.
Um, uh, I feel a little remedial, so forgive me if this all sounds a bit remedial.
No, not at
Um, this is so helpful for me. I feel like I'm realizing how hard it is for me to tune in to emotional stuff, and find it just is amazing, revelatory, very cool. So, um, but where I sort of have trouble getting past, or what I notice is that it's just this kind of comedic body pain issue. So my trying to get past the kind of leg twinge, back pain, neck pain, headache, stomach rumble, foot pressure. It's just sort of this sort of funny thing, and trying to sort of get past the physical kind of deluge is kind of
Mhm.
my challenge. I don't know. Is that what do we do with that?
What do we do with that freaking body? It just keeps doing its thing. Uh,
Yeah.
well, It's not remedial at all. It's actually rather foundational. At some point, I mean, no matter how comfortable we try to make ourselves, inevitably we're going to be coming across the inherent discomfort of the body, whether we have chronic pain or soreness, or maybe nothing's wrong at all with the body. The body just still hurts. And I mean, I don't know if anybody's counted the amount of times they've done micro movements since we've stopped meditating, but all of those little micro movements we do are just to alleviate pressure that builds up. So when we sit still, yeah, of course, we're going to be assailed by the discomforts of the body. Um, howsoever, um, it's funny, as we're all kind of in lockdown, I'm sure, as a lot of you are doing, kind of going through the movie lists and catching up on a lot of shows and stuff. So with my kids right now, we're introducing them slash forcing them to go through a lot of the movies of the 80s. And so we just rewatched Karate Kid. Are you familiar with that one, Lucy?
I've only because I didn't grow up in this country, and it's not like one I ever saw. But I feel like I feel like I know the wax on, wax off thing, but I don't really know. I mean, I should watch the film.
Yeah, no worries. It was just going to make a silly analogy where the protagonist Daniel-san, he says he wants to learn karate, and the teacher is like, all right, wax on, wax off, paint a fence. He's essentially having him do all this housework, and he just gets upset. He's like, finally, like, you need to teach me. And then it's like, the teacher starts to throw all these blows at him, and the student realizes that all the ways that he's been kind of working, doing these chores, is actually giving him the tools that he needed. So the pains of the body, the rumbling of the stomach, the aching in the back, they all have a size, a shape, a location. Is this sensation local? Is it global? Is it full body? As it's there, are we having an aversion to it? Or do we have a capacity to meet it with equanimity? If we're able to sustain the equanimity to it, does it begin to shift or change or move? So all of these ways of just being able to open up and turn towards the discomfort of the body, and we become adept at it, then we have an amazingly well-working toolbox that we can then just directly apply to the emotions. Because just like the pain in the back or the leg falling asleep, the emotion has the size, the shape, the location, the density, intensity. So even if today I'm saying, hey, get into these emotions and notice these things, but what's most prevalent for you is the physiological discomfort, any of those techniques that we were working with today could just, we can take out emotion and just replace that with the term physical discomfort, or physical pleasure as well.
Mm.
So whether the sensation is pleasant or unpleasant in the body, still location, size, shape, does it have a contour to it? If we penetrate into it, is there one experience of it? If we move away from it, is there a contrasting experience of relief or well-being outside of it? Or does it kind of radiate with this coronal field? And there's all different ways that we can become interested and curious and gather information about the physical pain. And then kind of the more that we kind of keep increasing the magnitude of how refined we're looking at it, it tends to break up in a way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was sort of playing with, because some things are like, the neck pain will trigger the fear that my chronic neck dysfunction will always cause me this much pain, or
Mm.
or the stomach might be pleasure, because I was like, oh yeah, that yogurt I made was fantastic, or whatever. So there is emotion attached, and I was kind of trying to play with how exactly the aversion and sort of but then I wasn't sure if I was sort of supposed to be looking past those sensations for more sort of like the peace, joy, fears past that, because everything just seemed to be this like show of physical stuff, and I could the only place I could kind of find the emotional stuff was in those physical experiences, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
you're
as the emotion
balance.
will come up as a response to the physical pain.
Exactly. That's I couldn't kind of get past that. So like you said, I was trying to sort of work with the emotions associated and not think of sort of because we're trying to tune into those emotions, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's perfectly good. You know, part of the difficulty of doing a guided meditation is I throw out a one size fits all instruction, and everybody is having their unique experience that may not align. So, you know, I was attempting to emphasize not engaging in thinking, not engaging in bringing up material that's eliciting an emotive response. So, you know, I was saying try to be primarily in the body, which sounds like you were doing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but then the problem is for a lot of people is ain't much happening. There's not a lot of emotions going on because I'm just kind of hanging out here. So if what happens is the largest, most pronounced attention grabbing thing is the physical discomfort, it's just normal. It's totally normal. And I think that the way that you handled it of partly just tending to the physical pain and partly looking at the emotive reaction and response, I think that's really wise. Especially I caught that what you were saying about, you know, chronic neck pain, and then there's a strong fear, is it always going to be like this? I would imagine, just from that little piece of information, if this is kind of a lifelong issue for you, you probably have a lot of built up, you know, emotive response to it.
That's exactly, the catastrophizing doesn't help
Yeah.
the relaxation or whatever, but that doesn't help it go away. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you can then maybe just kind of shift your focus, some moments just work into the physiological pain, allow the emotion to be in the background. Then some moments allow the physical pain to be in the background and primarily attune to the emotion, the emotive response to it. And then you can just kind of go back and forth and you can see how one may influence the other or vice versa. Uh, that could be a very fertile ground of working, absolutely, especially if we have kind of a long-term condition. You know, one thing that I like to ask of people is know our patterns. What's our patterns? And, you know, I guess I say patterns because it's a wider net than, say, our habits. But what is our patterned habitual reactive responses? You know, for some of us, it's like, oh, I have an anxiety condition. Some of us, it's I have obsessive thinking. Some of us, I might have a pain issue. Some of us, I have, you know, avoidance strategies that I just procrastinate through life. You know, just be aware of what your patterns are. And the more that we can kind of take it under the microscope of the meditative practice, and we could see maybe a simplified, pared down experience that might play out in real time, but maybe there's some kind of slowing down and being able to discern more of the nuance of the sensory experience there, we can see how, oh, as this happens, it kind of triggers this and that triggers this. But if I meet this, you know, upwelling of pain with enough equanimity, then it's not generating enough, you know, sufficient emotion to then trigger a catastrophization. I stumble on that word, you know, a catastrophe response in the mind. You can start to just look at that whole kind of sequence and patterning and focus on the different nuances of it. Yeah, I
Oh,
think that what you did was great.
thank you so much. That's so helpful. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you, Lucy. Right. I have time for one more. If anybody's got something they would like to share, that would be wonderful. Feel free to just step on up. Okay. Well, if anything comes up, feel free to jump in. But I'd like to. Nicole, do you hear the crickets? uh, um,
No, they're almost comic. It's like a special effect.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I was very aware of the crickets. Absolutely. Um,
I
so
almost feel.
go ahead.
No, I was just about to say I almost feel guilty that I don't have that much to report because I think I spent about 20 minutes of this 30-minute set. Approximately, we did approximately 30 minutes just because I had a lot of trouble settling earlier today. So I just did a lot of shamatha. And then it was in the body. It was very feel rest, real, real rest. Like that confusion over rest active was completely gone. It was just such a deep rest that I was perfectly happy to sit there.
Mhm.
What thoughts came up were easily dismissed. Okay, status fantasy, put that aside.
Mhm.
And I was actually kind of searching for an emotion, so I decided just go to the areas where, like, because I often have anger, angry storytelling, the places where, and there was tension, but it was subtle, and I couldn't label it.
Couldn't label a specific emotion.
Yeah, like, because it was just this tension that I could have been maybe indicative of a little over efforting, because I was looking, I was starting to really look for some kind of, because there was no obvious emotion, so there was like looking for some kind of, physical thing that I associate with an emotional set that I'm familiar with, but I just couldn't, it was just, so I just kind of rested,
Okay, good.
kind of maybe too much shamatha, maybe for the purposes of the exercise, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, the, the practice is just about allowing what is
Yep.
to
Yeah.
arise. And if the primary flavor for you is shamatha,
Yeah.
so there's like this field of shamatha, and within that there was this kind of nebulous tension
Mhm.
that didn't really differentiate into emotion, but it just stayed as tension, and that was
It
good.
might have just been residue from some frustration earlier today trying to get certain things done. I'm not sure.
Did that tension shift, change, move at all at any point?
I was actually pushing awareness, local glow, trying to like almost do a sequence, just trying to find if it's, but no, it pretty much stayed localized to face,
Hmm.
brow, face, slightly throat, and some tension in one side of the trapezius. That was it. Just kind of stayed there.
Okay. So what I was focusing on today was kind of fluidity, flux, and flow. But if we have uprisings of solid, that is to say, a solid emotion or a solid sensory experience, Juan, you're talking
Yeah,
about
just
tension.
very block rest. Unlike this morning when I was sitting, which was like really scattered, and I was just pouring on the equanimity, not to get so second arrow about it.
Yeah. So this can apply to emotion. This could apply to just nebulous tension. This can apply to like solidity of pain as well, since pain was brought up. If you just kind of like allow yourself to really just be specific as you can about the contours, the boundaries, the borders of that sensation, and really just kind of hold it in your awareness. You know, what is it like if you're to penetrate and soak in, allowing your awareness to soak into that sensation, like how water might soak into sand. Yeah, sometimes like in Buddhism and such, they'll talk about penetrating the
Mhm.
sensation, which sounds sometimes violent. I like
Mhm.
the image of water soaking into sand, just allowing your awareness to just kind of ease into it. Um, and while we have some kind of one part of our awareness contacting the shamatha, the calming cooling effect, then that could really kind of bring that calming cooling into the core of that tension or physical pain or emotion itself. And that might begin to facilitate some sort of shift in whatever way that is, whether um, are experiencing it as a problem or even that sensation beginning to break up a bit. But that's great. I'm glad that you're able to contact and just abide in restfulness today, Juan.
Yeah, because that way, at least one thing was clear was like I wasn't stuck in conceptual, which I
Hmm.
sometimes get. I'm very conscious of sometimes. Okay, I seem to constantly get out of this, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Um, okay, so we are coming down the home stretch. So I'd like to just kind of plant in everybody. We've been looking at emotions, just a way of working with them, with the noting feeling states. Been working with the concept of how to address them, the clear analogy, contact, label, explore, accept, release. Then today we've been working with kind of the expression of movement and change in the greater concept of this four stage model of working with Vipassana. So just because, I appreciate kind of the idea of like patterns and themes being brought up tonight, because I just want to drop a seed of next week. What I'd like to move into is, yeah, what are our patterns? Can you notice your patterns? Where is it that you find you trip up in life? Where is it that you notice that you might have a particular reactive habit that comes up that is just unpleasant? I listed some things, if somebody has a pattern of anxiety, avoidant behavior, or reactive anger, frustration. I really appreciate, Lucy, you were talking about there's the physical pain that elicits emotion, that elicits like a thought pattern of like, all right, is this my future? That's a very good, precise kind of A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 patterning. So that sort of thing, can we kind of become aware of that? Because I'd like to kind of offer some tools around kind of working with specific patterns, because it's like we can talk about cultivating states of joy, of oneness, of openness, but eventually they become disrupted by these deeper patterns that come up and trip us up. So the more that we can kind of get a little bit more specific about applying these tools towards a specific theme within our life, then we start cooking with fire, as they say. Yeah. So I just want to put that out there. Start thinking about what that might be for you. Okay. So heading down the home stretch. Let me get the proper links and such like that. I put all my information in there earlier. If you go to the top of the chat, if at any time anybody has any question about the practice, feel free to reach out to me. If you scroll up to the top there, it's got my email and text information there. Feel free to check out some stuff I might have on a Facebook page, and also content that I put up on the YouTube page. I suggest that if you are into this practice, you find it helpful, roll it into your daily practice. And if you don't have a daily practice, I encourage you to try to look into maybe building that. So that's part of the reason why I put these videos up on YouTube. So sometimes it's easier just to listen to a guided meditation. So that's what I do. So
I changed from my phone over to my laptop at some point, and then the chat gets erased. Mm-hmm. I think I found you on Facebook just now, but was there anything else I specifically missed?
In terms of like what I put up?
Yeah.
I can copy and paste that again.
All right, that would be great. I apologize for going backwards there.
No worries, no worries. All right, so let me put up a few things. Here is, first off, links to donate for Inside LA. So just want to do a little quick Dharma talk or Dana talk in terms of, we're all going through a tough time for sure. Inside LA certainly is as well, and could definitely benefit from your support. Eventually, when we do get to a point where we come back and sit together physically, it would be great if they had a place where the doors could be open, lights can be on. So your donations can definitely help there. Now then, I will repost or repaste my information there. If anybody wants to reach out for any questions regarding the practice, or links to YouTube, that's been reposted there. And also, one final thing, I do have a morning meditation that I offer Monday through Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I'm going to put that Zoom link there. So every day we work on a specific theme, metta, shamatha, vipassana, the noting feeling states theme that we do here in this series, and as well silent sitting practice. So you're all invited to that. And that's also offered freely. That's by Dana as well. So thank you everybody for all of your attention and your practice this evening. I'd like to end with a dedication of merit. By the merits of these acts and other such virtues, may we attain a liberation for the benefit of all beings. We bow before those who have come before us on the path, and before those who will come after us on the path. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all next week. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. See ya.